Good morning, folks. Today we have a real treat on Craftsman David. We're going to be making a Leopold bench with this cedar that you see behind me. And I have a special guest, my uncle, George.
Good morning, David.
Say hello to the camera.
Oh, good. Hello to the camera.
Take a look in the description for a link to this free set of plans. It was drawn up by yours truly based on a bench that I saw and liked.
So the first thing George is going to do is use the plan to lay out the pieces. Now when you're looking at laying out the pieces, see how this line, he can kind of put the bevel on it and escape this knot. We're going to try to do that consistently to always get the part of the board we want in the project. Having a miter saw makes quick work of cutting at angles. It also helps to have someone holding the other end like I'm doing here. So first we cut all the pieces to length, and now we're laying out the back that's going to become the side of the Leopold bench. Pay attention to the plan because it actually says this line here that you have to strike is 25 inches from the long side of the angle, not the short side. So actually you have to measure over 25, use your square to carry that mark over to the other side, and then you can take a straight edge and run it between the 2 points to come up with this shape. So this strike line could be cut out in 2 ways. I'm going to try it here at the bandsaw first. And another good way to cut these are with a circular saw.
Next, we're planing down a 2x4 to 1 inch to match the thickness of the deck boards that are going to go on the back of the bench. If you didn't have a planer, you could always buy an extra cedar decking board and just rip it to 3.5 inches wide, like a 2x4. And of course, planing down a board leaves sharp edges, so here I am rounding the edges back over.
Now we're going to cut the pieces to length. The back needs 4-foot pieces, so this has to get cut in half to make 2 benches.
Glue on the knife. And steady myself and just shove glue down into that joint. Sometimes I also use syringes,
For cattle,
animal,
right?
For cattle, right.
Just squeeze the glue in there.
And then take some sawdust, rub some sawdust across it, and then take a little sandpaper. It helps eliminate the crack, fill in the crack, and once you put a finish on it, you'll hardly be noticeable.
Yeah, and that's great because sometimes when you buy an 8-foot board, you can't help but getting a little cracking on the end. This helps you get the utilization out of your whole board. So here we're cutting right in the middle of the mark to cut the board exactly in half and have equal curves. I guess I should have been holding it.
Now we're going to make the small seat support pieces out of about 1 foot of 2x4. 1 foot gives you 2 pieces because you rip it in half, just like this.
I laid out what my first angle is going to be. Then I set up a stop block because I got to make 4 cuts. So what I do is I just bump it up to the stop block, make my cut, flip it over. There's one.
And there's the last one. A belt sander comes in real handy for rounding over all these sharp edges.
Wherever we see a little bit of burn marks on cedar, you can really sand it out quick. So that's basically what we do.
I also use the router to soften all the sharp edges on the sides.
And there it is, folks. All the wood required to make 2 benches. Now we're going to sand all the flat surfaces that we can get at before we assemble it. Saves work later.
If you're afraid of woodworking because of sanding, check out how fast this is. A random orbital sander is just blasting through the surface. Cedar is also pretty soft and easy to work with. Isn't that awesome?
So now we're going to start with the assembly of the sides, and we've kind of set up a little jig very simply on our work table here. We took one of our leftover 2x4s that's nice and straight. We clamped it to the edge, so now we can put the side down and we can put the inside on here and use a block as a spacer.
Right here. And then what we do, we get it both flat, and I took a pencil and I just put a real light pencil mark where that is going to go. And then we take it off Just a little bit of glue, don't need a whole lot. You don't want it squeezing out on you. It just creates havoc later when you go to put a finish on. But we just spread a little glue on there. Then we set this back on, lining up our pencil marks. And
It's a triangle, so we'll put in 3 screws, one near each point. Now notice the bit that he's using does have a countersink on it, but this wood is softwood, so if you didn't have a countersink, you can still just run your screws in and let the impact countersink it. You want to glue against the bottom too?
No, that's good enough.
Okay.
Actually, you're gluing long grain to short grain,
Yeah,
so you really don't have a whole lot of strength. The strength is really going to be from here to here and the screw. Here we have one side complete.
The nice thing about working with glue and screws is we can just set this to dry, and the screws are going to hold it together like clamps would. Yep. So now we got it all lined up again. And notice that this is backwards because you want to make mirror images of the assemblies.
Make sure we got our sides matched.
Yep,
We'll
they
have to watch
match. They're mirrors.
this mirrored image. Looks like we're good to put on the seat. And this here has, all I have to do is go down deeper so we can put in a plug on the top and hide these screws. Now, if you notice, we did not glue this top to the seat board. It just makes it easier to replace if that one of these seat boards happened to break or something. As you see here, we have a little gouge on the bottom of this one, so we're going to put that on the bottom so
No one will ever see it.
well, they'll see it. They lay on the ground and look up at it.
So hopefully you're not giving this to a mechanic. Right?
Now it's time to put the back on. So what we want to do, we want to line it up with the bottom right here.
And you always start with this one so that you don't end up off your piece of wood.
Now how to space this next board, we put up a couple of these pieces of scrap from when we cut those angles on the back.
Now for a few finishing touches. Cleaning up the sharp edges on the corners, just wherever you see them on the bench. Now I'm using a scrap piece from the same project to make plugs to put in those holes in the seat. And now I'll plug these holes just by lining up the grain and tapping it in. Then I can saw it off. After a little sanding, you'll never even know that's there. And just as promised, those screw holes disappear. And here's our finished Leopold bench. And you can sit on it the same day you build it.
Yep.
Is there anything like a cedar Leopold bench? These benches are great and they're so simple to build. With just a little bit of lumber and about 4 hours of your time. And that's for 2 benches.
Now that we got our benches done, there's a couple ways you can put a finish on them. You can stain them and put a clear finish, and you can paint them, but use something that's durable for outdoors, like an outdoor polyurethane works great. And on the bottom that comes in contact with the ground, I've taken and right here, I mixed water and waterproof glue and just put a little layer on to seal these end grains. It just makes them last a lot longer because water won't absorb in them. And then put a nice finish over top of it.
Talk about the rot resistance of cedar.
It's very, very good rot resistance. These should last many years. I mean, helps every so often, every couple of years, is just take them in, sand them off, and put on another coat of polyurethane or paint. But they're easy to maintain and very durable benches for outside.